Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit that subscribe button if you're new so you don't miss any of our great football content this season. Okay, another game. So I had picked the Broncos on my Blazing Five. I think I went 2-3 today. By the way, I had the over on Arizona, Tennessee. It should have gone over in the second quarter. Those teams are horrific. I took the Broncos to beat Philadelphia. They did 21-17. It was like two games. For the record, all Philadelphia games are two games.
Yeah.
Just pick your half. So Philadelphia led 17-3. Bo Nix was stymied by Vic Fangio. But again, these are long games. And Philadelphia runs into these walls where they're just a punt factory, and they're very dependent on a big play over the top. Saquon's numbers have been reduced significantly, so you'll get your chance to beat Philadelphia because they'll go into a punt situation. Sure enough, we get to the fourth quarter. Playing from behind, and Sean Payton's play calling. Bo Nix hit on a couple of big throws. They have some crevices in the run game, and they come back to win a game. So let's start with Philadelphia. I mean, John, they are incapable of playing a full, solid game of offense. They're either really impressive or awful. There's no in between. To me, it's got to be a coordinator. It's not personnel. The O-line has regressed badly. These guys are all in their prime, except Lane Johnson, who's older. They're all in their prime. To me, there's a coordinator issue.
Well, I thought Romo and Nance, especially Tony, mentioned it a couple times. Like, Sirianni's not the one under heat around here. It's this Kevin Petula that's his buddy for about 15 years. But they finally, through the first, 60, 70% of this game, they were feeding Devontae Smith. They hit A.J. Brown. They had an opportunity for a nail in the coffin moment in this game. It was 17-3. They clearly had schemed up this play to A.J. Brown, and he's wide open. And Jalen had hit a couple deep bombs throughout the game. So when he let it rip, you went, oh, this thing. Because he's when his deep ball's working, it looks great.
Ball game.
And it flew right over his head. And then they had to punt, and then it kind of flipped from there. Because 24-3, the game is over. Because like you said, Bo Nix was horrendous. I mean, I as someone that I bet on the Broncos to win the division, had high hopes for them. Like a lot of people, I bought into everything Sean Payton was saying. And you're watching him; he's missing these deep balls. They have big play schemes, and he missed them. And then I don't know if maybe he just kind of took a deep breath, but then he hit a couple plays to Sutton, hit some back shoulder throws.
Yep.
And obviously, the game-winning drive. He hit Sutton over the middle on a big third down. He used his feet a couple times, and Tony kept saying, it's almost like, if you're missing jump shots, get to the line, get fouled.
Yeah.
You're a really good athlete. And I think Fangio had said during the week, like, kind of reminds me of Baker Mayfield. And Tony's like, he's a way better athlete than Baker Mayfield. Like, he can really run.
Yes.
He's like, just run a little bit. But I think he wants to prove that he can throw. But his arm, in terms of accuracy, has just kind of been off. And then he just got into a rhythm, and obviously, then Philly just hit the skids, and you could feel it on television. I've watched a lot of games there live. It got tight, and the whole building kind of went silent because they've seen this song and dance. And like you said, they can go through a quarter where they're clearly one of the most talented teams in the league, where they look horrendous. And you're just, in Fangio's defense, you can't, in this day and age with the rules, it's hard to have just 60 minutes of playing like 85 Bears. It doesn't work that way.
No, and they weren't very good. Again, when you get them into a 3rd and 4 or a 3rd and 5, and they can't do the tush push, they weren't very good on 3rd down. Once again,
did we even see the tush push today? I don't know if we did.
They were 2-9 on 3rd down, 45 yards rushing, huge time of possession. I mean, it felt like in the fourth quarter, Denver had the ball the entire fourth quarter. Yeah. And I wrote that down, 30 to 22-minute time disadvantage. But in the fourth quarter, Bo Nix had 2 drives for touchdowns, 15 points in 5.5 minutes. That was a big sideline throw to Cortland Sutton. Then there was that Zach Bond late hit. That kind of sealed it. I mean, at some point, Philadelphia, that last drive, John, they were reduced to begging for PI calls on the Hail Mary and the ball down to the 2-yard line. So you can kind of tell from their body language. They know they're struggling. It's just like anything else in life. I don't care if it's a relationship or a football game or an offense. It gets into your head. and then you start doubting your play calling, and then you start forcing the ball to certain players. But I go back to Sirianni's not a scheme guy. He's more in the Dan Campbell culture builder, alpha male. And so he's very dependent on who his OC is. Remember when he first got to Philly, as you know, he called plays. It was a disaster. Hands it off to Steichen, heater. Steichen leaves, Brian Johnson, disaster. Then he brings in Kellen Moore. They right the ship. Kellen exits. Now you got the new guy. So he's very dependent. Andy Reid's not. Shanahan's not. Although Shanahan's defense has been very dependent on the right coordinator. Saleh now is dealing with kids, and Fred Warner is outstanding. So I just look at Philly, and to me, it's one thing. You could argue that Saquon Barkley's got fatigue from all the carries, but when an offensive line regresses like it has, to me, that's coordinator.
Yeah, I mean they've had injury too. I mean Dickerson got hurt today.
Yep.
I just think
Again,
Jalen is I think clearly established himself as a pretty streaky player, right? He just happened to have two of the great games in Super Bowls. One of them he won, and he could easily be 2-0 against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and he's played fantastic in them. But like through the course of a season, he's just a very you don't know what you're getting series to series.
You don't.
And that's where it's like, is there a huge drop off between Kellen Moore and this guy? Hard to tell. But like Kellen had been an offensive coordinator for a long time. He'd coached from Dak to Herbert. Like it just had way more experience. This guy never called plays in the NFL. He'd been a lifetime position coach. Even if he'd been around the Eagles the whole time and been on the staff, there's a big difference than giving suggestions and making the decisions. Right? I mean, that's why do the Eagles feel pretty good about their defense? I don't know. They have a Hall of Fame defensive coordinator who's 65 years old and been doing it for decades. So I also think they got an elephant in the room. Last year, Brandon Graham kind of let the cat out of the bag, and he tried to walk it back. But how often do you see a guy? He's 35 years old. Brandon Graham's got multiple kids. Like this guy isn't just an immature young guy saying something stupid. He knew what he was saying because it was the truth. He tried to walk it back. This year's gotten weird. They clearly tried to force feed him the ball, which I'd force feed him the ball too. But like it's not in the like you watch the Vikings with Justin Jefferson. He's just their best player, and they just give him the ball a lot because he's a great player. Jamar Chase. That's usually the A.J. Brown thing. Kind of it's weird because they got all these other options, but they know that he can be obviously a little fickle with his emotions.
Yeah.
And it's hard for him to hold them in because at this point in time, he's on like his fourth contract, so he's made an ungodly amount of money. He's a Super Bowl champ. He's an All-Pro. Like he's checked all the now it's just like he just wants the ball. He's just an emotional receiver.
What did Brandon? I remember Brandon Graham came out.
They don't like each other. Essentially, their relationship is fractured.
Jalen and A.J. Brown.
Because part of when they traded for him was like these guys are really good buddies. They've known each other, and then something happened. And it was like, well, it's life. You get as you grow up, maybe your relationships aren't as tight, and you just deal with it. And they win the Super Bowl, whatever. But then this year, it feels like immediately it gets a little weird, and AJ brings it back to the surface. Can't even hide it. And part of it is Jalen, which is a good quality. He's like unemotional. Even today, like with the no time left on that final drive, it's just this guy's unfazed. I mean, sometimes I wish I had like his emotional stability.
Yeah.
I mean, I get angry just podcasting. He's just a flatliner. And I wonder sometimes in football, like some of our best quarterbacks can be a little emotional, and Jalen just has none.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was told this by somebody who would know that's very connected to that locker room. And they said Jalen's not the most popular Eagle. Players love emotional guys. I mean, I remember years ago, half the league thought Westbrook was better than Steph Curry. Steph Curry's married. He's quiet. He's not cool. His shoe looks like something a pharmacist would wear. Westbrook's cool. He's athletic. He's got the music. He's got the game. And Jalen's one of those guys. He's got an all-female like management team. He's not going to hire one of your buddies. He's not one of the guys. It's like the old Joe DiMaggio with the Yankees. It was like Joe DiMaggio just wasn't one of the guys. He was brilliant. Not everybody wants to go out and hit it and be wild every night. Like Jalen's very reserved, very mature, very focused, and he has a life beyond football. And I love guys like that. But and AJ, I get it. When you got a trophy and you got the bag, you're looking for legacy. He wants to be a Hall of Famer. So I kind of defend him that way, you know?
And part of being an all-time great quarterback, because Jalen has the opportunity. He's already been to a couple Super Bowls. He's won one. Like, he's going to be a starter for a long time. Is like by the end of Peyton and especially Tom, how could they relate to anybody? Yet, you never have met anyone that has been in a locker room with Tom over the course of like the last decade of his career. It wasn't like, yeah, he was the easiest guy to deal with. He was great. Anything I needed, he was always, he could he wasn't going out and drinking beers with him anymore or hanging, but he knew exactly how to be and I've heard the same thing about Peyton Manning, or Phillip Rivers is a good example. Had like 7 kids with 3 years to go in his career. I know multiple people that played with him that said I would have run through a wall for his family, let alone the guy. Like there is a skill to be able to, and listen, when you get taught by Saban, like that doesn't really matter. You just kind of do what he says. Then you get to the NFL, and maybe it's just an attribute that Jalen's really going to have to focus on just moving forward, because it's clearly not his personality. Which, listen, our personality is our personality, but at that position, especially if you're not going to be like Patrick Mahomes. How does Patrick Mahomes relate to an undrafted free agent rookie? He can't anymore. He's worth $500 million. But ask anyone with the Chiefs. He does. Right?
Yeah.
And Josh Allen now at this point, married to some Holly. Like that, you have to do that. Lamar Jackson. I've known people that have coached there that just said people love this guy in the locker room.
Yeah.
He's not hanging out with them all. So it is, the onus is on the player at that position. You've said this forever. Not about any of the other positions. You can act like however you want as a corner or wide receiver, not a quarterback. So sometimes you got to go above and beyond and just kind of almost fake it, to be friends with a guy.
Yeah, and Jalen's pretty stoic. That's his personality.